I'm very happy to welcome you to our panel, Web3 Opportunities for Brands, a use case deep dive. And who I have here today, we have Sebastian from Mercedes-Benz NXT, Philip from Polygon Labs, and Mark from ATP. And today we're talking a little bit about what are you guys doing with your brands in the Web3 space, and how do you use the technology for ramping up your businesses. So I want to quickly start with an introduction round. So, Sebastian.
Sure, thank you. Sebastian, I'm part of the founding team of the creative studio of Mercedes-Benz venture into Web3. We specifically created the brand Mercedes-Benz NXT for digital collectibles, digital products. The goal is basically, I mean, while there are a lot of interesting use cases for NFT, for Web3 in the automotive industry that we are exploring, from traceability over the supply chain, digital twins, we started with an end customer facing one, which is digital collectibles, basically aiming to bring the collectibility of the Mercedes-Benz brand in the physical space that it already has in the physical space into the digital realm. And we've launched 3 collections so far. The first one, digital art, at a very small target audience within the NFT space. Second one is a collection of digital collectibles that we're gifting to the very top Mercedes-Benz customers worldwide during live events. And the third one we're actually launching on Tuesday, next Tuesday. It's Mercedes-Benz NXT Icons, basically playing with the automotive heritage, design heritage of Mercedes-Benz, and a digital collectible collection around that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Credit to you for being here when you've got a launch next week. Hi everyone, my name is Mark Epps. I lead Web3 for the ATP Tour. We are the global governing body for men's professional tennis. We have 2 main stakeholder groups in our business. On one side is the tournaments, and we run a tour, a global tour from January to November each year of 60+ tennis tournaments. And then the other side of our membership is the players. So right from the world #1 down through the rankings. I lead Web3. It's a fairly new division of the tour. We had a very successful drop at the back end of last year, and building to our next one in November this year. So got a little more time than Sebastian.
Great. Hey everyone. My name is Philip. I'm the BD director for Polygon in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And basically, we are providing infrastructure as part of our business that brands can build on. And as a BD team, what we're trying to do is basically help corporates, brands, IPs to transition from Web2 to Web3. So yesterday, I had the opportunity here to present, for example, the work we've done with Lufthansa. That's just one of the brands, Nike, Starbucks, or others. So yeah, that's what we do.
Cool. Thank you very much. I want to start with you, Mark.
Sure.
So if we look at 2022, there was a lot of hype around NFTs. Brands were jumping on it. Now it's 2023. The world has changed a little bit. It got a little bit silent around NFTs. So tell us, why are you still here? What made you stay?
Good question. No, you're right. I mean, we're in a different place than we were 18 months ago. I guess just to share a bit of our story, like, we were first attracted to Web3 in general by, you know, the hype cycle and the frenzy that happened in 2021, namely with NBA Top Shots. And we took a little bit of time to figure out what our first move in the space would be. We have a number of interesting constraints, which we can dive into if that's interesting. But in general, we see just a massive opportunity as a brand, and that's regardless of actually what's happening with price or adoption. Specifically talking about tennis, right? We're a global sport. We've got 1 billion fans, that's with a B. And despite that, you know, you only have 6 million fans who physically come on site to our tournaments every year. So 99+% of our audience is watching through broadcast or through streams or digital. And I don't mean to be sort of overly bearish on tennis, but I obviously compare it to other experiences of being a fan of basketball or football, right? And you know, when you are a team sports fan, there's a lot of social glue, there's a lot of interaction that's part of that experience. You know, you go to the stadium, you wear the shirt. But with tennis, it's a little bit more one way. And I think the tennis fan experience is so ripe for disruption by Web3 because it can be this shared tech layer that allows us to reward fans, recognize their avidity. And by the way, we have crazy loyal fans in our sport. So that's why we're still here. We're as bullish as ever. You're right, it is a bit of a quiet period, but actually, and we can dive into that, that has its benefits as well.
Good time to build, right?
Yep.
Talking about very loyal fans, I think this also relates to Mercedes and what you guys are doing there. You said that you have different options as a big automotive company to use Web3. What made you decide to go for the loyalty kind of thing or the digital collectible thing in the beginning? And maybe where is like a relation to sports like tennis, where it's also about like gluing the fans to the sport? What was your reason to go that route?
I think it made sense to start with digital collectibles or with art actually specifically because it's something that was already learned as opposed to the more explorative use cases that I just mentioned with traceability and stuff like that. That is still going on, but it's less publicly visible. And then actually launching in this market kind of is exciting for us and beneficial for us because we can specifically target the target audience that we want to target, meaning we want collectors that collect. The first collection was digital art, and now launching digital collectibles because it does something to them emotionally, because they want to actually collect the digital collectible, and not because they expect something from it, either financial return or sort of utility. So launching in the hype phases of the last 2 years, it was kind of hard to attract that collector's audience. Now it's a little bit easier, so for us it's very exciting and maybe even beneficial to actually launch during this bear market.
Yeah. Philip, you're also working a lot with brands. You already teased it. You work together with Starbucks, with Lufthansa, the case you presented yesterday, also Nike. This is like a bright spectrum of different use cases of Web3. What is, from your point of view, the sentiment right now? Like, where is the space moving? What are brands really interested in? And what route are they choosing in Web3?
Yeah, yesterday there was an interesting talk here from Jürgen Alka on cycles that we all go through in that industry, right? About optimism, disbelief, hype, and then depression and all of that. So I think right now what I really like about this fair here is that you only see players that are in it for the long term, that have a strategic approach. And I think taking a step back here, that is the interesting thing to work with a lot of different brands, is to find out what is your objective. Because in the hype cycle, so many went in without a real strategy and an objective, and it was right away about commercialization. And the conversation that I have with these brands is that, look, blockchain technology is just another technology like the internet, or like you need to alter your business model around e-commerce or around mobile. So what's your strategy? And usually they are like looking at me like a bus. Right? Like, okay, what are you even asking? Right? So I said, look, this is where we need to start from. Okay? And I think then it's super interesting because you can use the technology for either, well, you're creating a net new asset class or a net new product suite for you, because now it's possible to have digital products. Or you say, well, I'm actually here for having a better connection to our customer base, because that's now possible directly without intermediaries, without platforms again. There are so many different things that you can do. I think you just need to find that out as a brand. Why are you here? What's your goal? And that's why it's so interesting to hear from all of you, like, what is the brand's goal? And yeah, that's super interesting for me.
Thank you very much. That would have been my next question to you, Mark. So we're talking about use case deep dive. So what was your initial goal with ATP, using NFT technology, using the art you did in your love project?
Yep.
And where do you see the future of this project?
Sure. So, I mean, speaking specifically about the love project, that very much for us was us trialing, dipping our toes in the water, and I would say that was an innovation play, right? We partnered with Art Blocks. We explored a vertical which you talked about, art, which, by the way, I think it's the purest and best use case of NFTs. That's just my opinion. And you know, we used an asset that we have an abundance of in sport, data, and created this really neat collection of 300 unique artworks. And honestly, expectations were not particularly high. I mean, we launched in December last year, so this was right after sort of the FTX collapse, peak FUD. And it blew everything out the water, right? I mean, sold out in 20 minutes, it's done a few $1 million in trading volume. Like, it was a really, really great case study. Looking ahead, what is the goal for the brand? Long term, the thing that excites me most is what Philip mentioned, is connecting with consumers. You know, going back to that problem of, or rather the tennis fan experience, I really do feel that in some ways that experience is a little bit one-dimensional. You may live in a city like Sydney or in Hamburg, and tennis comes to your city 1 week a year, and then it doesn't come again for 12 months. And so we have a job to do to kind of keep fans connected and engaged throughout the season. Everybody, of course, knows the 4 Grand Slams. You've got the Australian Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the US Open. But what most tennis fans don't realize is that there's this whole tour going on for 11 months a year with the same players. You know, there's an amazing Wimbledon final this year, right, between Djokovic and Alcaraz. Everyone was super excited about that game, changing of the guard. 3 weeks later, they play an even better match in Cincinnati. And yet, if you're not sort of ingrained in the tour and a core fan, maybe you're not aware of it. So for me, that's the long-term goal, is connecting with fans. So this year, I don't want to take up too much time, we're launching another art drop in November, but with a very different approach, and that is scale. We've got a really amazing artist on board, his first ever NFT drop. And then into 2024, it's really about loyalty for us. I have this grand vision of connecting every experience you have with the sport through Web3. So whether you watch a stream, or you buy a hat, or you buy a ticket, everything for me should be represented on chain so that we can see you, we can reward you, other brands can reward you. But that's the long-term vision, and in 2024, we're focused on building really a minimum viable product of that idea.
Very cool. And talking about community, your customers, you already mentioned the fan experience. On the other hand, we have like car owners. I know that with the project you did, you were specifically targeting existing customers, which are one of the best top customers at Mercedes-Benz. How was that for you? How did this work out? Like, not going to the Web3 crowd, saying like, hey, give me all your Ethereum, you know, we will drop NFTs as we usually do, but really like going the route of interacting with consumers that never had touch points with Web3 before. What can you share a little bit, like, what was the experience with that? How did they react to that?
Maybe to circle back just a tiny bit, our very first collection was specifically it was generative art. We partnered with Fingerprints, so a very well-known and established collector and artist DAO, and Harm van den Dorpel is a very, very awesome artist in the space, and created a 1,000-piece collection of generative art, specifically marketed very quietly to like an NFT OG community, because we felt that they most get the dynamics that we wanted to establish. So buying because they love the art, not because they want to flip it, because they expect some sort of financial return from it. That was our initial introduction into the NFT space, because that's sort of what we as collectors were looking for brands to do for the last 2 years, and felt like very few actually did it. So that was the very first collection, very narrow NFT OG community targeted with the first collection. The second collection was sort of taking the very best Mercedes-Benz customers that made the brand into what it is currently on this Web3 journey as well. And as you can imagine, the very top Mercedes-Benz clients are rather on the older side and maybe less technically savvy. So we had to come up with a journey that we could gift NFTs to them that A, felt like they were receiving something valuable, emotionally valuable, and also onboarded them without them realizing it, I feel like. So we partnered up with a small startup in Berlin, they're actually showing the product here, Yuva, and created like a very smooth onboarding journey where we gift those top customers at events where they gather anyways. So we were in Singapore for like a very cool event of the top 20 customers in the Singapore market just last week. We gift them the card, they tap it to their phone, that sets up a crypto wallet and actually triggers a smart contract that sends a digital collectible created by Gordon Wagner, the chief design officer of Mercedes-Benz, to that newly created wallet. And that sets them up with a wallet with their first NFT, maybe without them realizing that. So like a super smooth onboarding journey of these top customers. And the hope would be that they act as multipliers And in the smallest case, we take them on this journey, on this venture into Web3. And the idea behind the collectible collection that we're launching next Tuesday is basically expanding both of these target audiences. So the NFT space a little bit more mainstream, and then brand fans more than only the top customers that should get to experience those collectibles, the Mercedes-Benz NXT icons.
Cool. How was it for you guys, Mark? You said that you launched your collection during the bear market, right after the FTX crash. I think timing couldn't be worse for dropping NFTs to the Web3 crowd at least. But you said you sold out. Like, what was the recipes for success to that?
Lots of things, namely our partners. But no, I mean, actually similar to what Sebastian was describing, like the concept was very narrow and it was targeted really at crypto OGs, and that ended up being the community that bought this collection. Generative art is, I mean, actually, if you looked at the market last year, prices, usage, volumes, etc., was going one way, and there was only one thing going the other way, and that was generative art, and really like blue chip art blocks projects. So we were lucky in our timing. It was important for us to work with great partners. The artists, absolutely phenomenal. Art blocks, great partners. And why did the project sell out? Really, I mean, I say this all the time, and it's actually getting kind of boring, but it was simplicity, you know? We sold art. There was no utility tied to it. There were no promises. It wasn't about speculation. Like, the concept was so simple to understand. It was a premium product with great partners. And that's the kind of mantra that I think about all the time when I think about what we're doing next. Like, it always comes back for me to simplicity.
Very cool. Philip, from a chain perspective, like Polygon, as I said, you're working with a lot of brands. What would you say? What made the brands successful that you worked with?
Well, successful, then we come back to, again, what's their objective, right? But I think you touched on great points. In the research for the talk yesterday, I stumbled across the number that by 2026, Gen Z will make up 40% of the consumer base, right? So if you know about that number, and you know that, always new technology is in the hands of the young, it's like, okay, as a brand, you, in whatever way, you need to adopt that technology and you need to step in, right? So I think it's less about which direction do you take, what is it exactly that you do? You need to find the fit for your brand, and I think if you find the right fit, that will make you successful. To have this bond with the younger generation, to have the next consumer base for your product. So yeah, I think that's what makes it a brand successful on an individual case.
Cool. So NFTs, crypto, Web3, very hard topics for big corporations in terms of the legal side, also in terms of a very new technology that they are like stumbling across and having to get to know. From your experiences, like, how easy was it to start these projects off? What did it take to do that inside a corporation? Because I feel like in the audience, maybe there are a lot of people that want to do that for the brand they're working for, but don't really know where to start. Maybe you can give some advices from your perspective, how you handled it, pushing it into the corporations. Maybe we can start with you, Mark.
Sure. I mean, I would say that as a tour, we're in a very lucky position because our, management, senior leadership are very, very forward-thinking. We are at our heart an entertainment brand, right? And their position is always that if we are not pushing the product forward and, engaging those younger audiences, we have a problem as a business. And they actually view it that our competition doesn't just lie within sports. It's not other sports we're competing with, but it's everything that takes your attention. It's Netflix, it's Spotify, it's gaming. So on that sense, our management already had a propensity, I guess, to adopt new technology and to try new things. And I count myself very lucky because when we talk specifically about Web3, the mandate they gave us was unreal. They basically said, we want you to go out, take risk, try not to spend too much money, and see how you go. So we got an amazing mandate, and then from my side, I think what was really important was helping them to get a better understanding of the space. And so took it upon myself to do sort of internal training sessions, starting really from the basics, like what is Bitcoin? And I was blown away. We do these sessions. We'd sit for an hour and they'd talk about the blockchain, and then they say, "Mark, that was amazing. Like, let's go again next week." So. I don't know if that's really helpful or applicable insights for the rest of the room, but I can definitely say, like, without the sort of buy-in or belief from the top, or at least the trust from the top, it's possibly going to be challenging. Curious to know how Mercedes
I think
approaches that.
Very similar experience. So super happy and excited that Mercedes-Benz management, including or specifically Ola Kalinius as the CEO and Gordon Wagner as the Chief Design Officer, are super excited about. I mean, Mercedes-Benz is not only a luxury company, but it's like an innovation leader, and they really embrace that role. So exploring new technologies, and as such, they saw blockchain like 1.5 years ago. It's in their blood, and that still doesn't mean that it's easy to establish something like that. So we started working on this more than 1.5 years ago, because it is a lot of regulatory and a lot of legal stuff that has to be figured out, especially if you want to launch digital products globally, which should be the aim, because why think in nation states or borders in the digital world? But I mean, the jurisdiction or the laws are not the same in every country, so you have to sort of go into each country and check every country tax-wise, regulatory-wise, legally. That is a lot of effort, and excited that time is now mainly behind us, and we can look forward to actually launching our products now. But yeah, super hard for a large brand that wants to roll out something like this on a global scale. Super excited that the management is excited about it, because otherwise it doesn't work.
How actually was the reaction after your first drop and seeing the results and the success? Like, has that helped you?
Definitely. I mean, we sold out in 19 minutes in the deepest bear market. So that was super exciting. Also, seeing the reaction of the collectors, and we've got in touch with some of, I mean, obviously on Discord and Twitter or X, but also during live events, and seeing the reaction and also connecting collectors with Mercedes-Benz management. We had an event at the IAA, the large international automotive fair in Munich, just 1.5 weeks ago, and sort of connecting the two helps a lot, because the management sees how excited collectors get, and the other way around.
That's
so
cool.
That's a lot of fun and very exciting.
Maybe just one quick point that I would like to add there is, in my experience talking to the big corporates, we give top management there too little credit, that innovation is just part of their DNA and what they have done for decades. So sometimes I think we're too self-centered in the Web3 space, where we're like, okay, this is so special. I mean, these managers have been dealing with regulation for decades, and as a global corporate, you always need to be aware of that. Yes, the financial piece here might be something that is out of the ordinary, and you don't always have combined with innovation, but these corporate, they're in it for the right reason, and if your intentions are right, you can always speak to regulators. We'll get over that.
And we are speaking to BaFin in Germany,
right.
And it's exciting because it's new for them as well. So we're all figuring it out at the same time.
Very interesting. Maybe the question, we talked a lot about the visions, why you're still here, but really digging in, what are the challenges you're still facing day by day? How do you solve them? And what gives you a headache? I mean, this is the most uncomfortable question, I know, but I think it's also like important to know where are the things you can stumble over if you're dealing with Web3. Can be everything from the product implementation or product discovery process to the technical implementation. What would be the first thing that comes to your mind, Sebastian?
Tons of challenges every day. I mean, that makes it so exciting. I think we'll always have regulatory and like legal challenges to solve, because there's new stuff, like new product idea or new logics every day. But then there's also new lawsuits every day. I mean, there's a lot of lawsuits in the US currently. I mean, NFTs as securities is always like a huge no, so you have to really be careful to not get into that realm. Technical issues, I mean, we wanted to launch our collectibles 2 weeks ago, but actually ran into technical issues, not Web3 related at all, but with cloud providers, so very Web2 technology.
Wow.
I think that's something that we'll have to deal with going forward as well. I can't tell you what the biggest challenges will be in the future. It's a new thing every day, but excited to solve them, excited that we're all kind of going through it at the same time, excited that we're all trying to grow the space together. So all the challenges I don't care about. I'm looking forward to the future.
I would take all of the above from Sebastian and add just the general user experience to that mix. It's still a huge challenge. For our upcoming drop, we're actually abstracting away everything to do with Web3 and digital collectibles. We are actually, I call it a bit of a Trojan horse. We're selling a physical with a digital twin. And I'm hyper-focused on getting into the details of the user experience, making the process gasless, making it, custodial wallet, email login. Like, I want what we do, to be able to be used by my mum, and that's the only way, really, that we're going to be able to do something meaningful at scale for our billion fans. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. So yeah.
I always take my parents as the
benchmark, the litmus test.
Is it working yet or not? Maybe 2 more challenges that I would love to add. We're really looking forward to the time in the space and time, the point in time where people really get digital collecting. So they feel like collecting digitally is the same as collecting stuff in the physical world. We are collecting the weirdest stuff physically, and nobody's asking, so what do I get by collecting, I don't know, bottle caps? I'm really looking forward to that point in time where more and more people feel that collecting something digitally is on the same level.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
Maybe adding up to what you said, usability, build it in a way that your mom can use it. Philip, how far are we with the technology? So I know you guys are shipping and really doing your best, but blockchain is still hard to use. What is your perspective on that? How far are we in the process of creating technology that can solve problems easily and is very, very user-friendly?
Yeah, so first of all, +1 on the things that you said, right? Abstract away the technology and user experience must be seamless, right? And I think, as always, we're trying to have built everything yesterday in that space. And when we think back how long it took the internet from, we also remember using our dial-up modem and what we're doing today, right? That was a journey. I feel that over the last, let's call it 1.5 years of a bear market, when you're deep into the space, you realize that there were amazing developments in infrastructure, scaling-wise, UX-wise. We're not there. We always compare it should be exactly our Web2 experience already. It won't be, right? But I think the developments that were made over the last 1.5 years were super good, and we will now see more user-based products, user-facing products that will build on that infrastructure, and I think that will bring us to the next stage where we can onboard more mainstream users that now don't have the hurdle anymore. All right, how do I do this with the wallet and MetaMask and whatever? So I feel we'll just go in steps, right?
And I mean, the Lufthansa product is close to it, right? I mean, it's a hybrid of Web2, Web3, but I would feel super comfortable telling my mom and dad to download that app, use it, and then maybe because I gifted them a ledger and set up a MetaMask, even connected to their wallet. So I think in certain points, we are already very smooth in the user interfaces.
Yes, agree. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Maybe looking a bit into the future, where do you see, you touched on it in the very beginning with saying traceability to getting in touch with the end customer. Where do you see this going for a brand like Mercedes, Sebastian? Because your core product is still a car, right?
Totally.
So how do you think this will also maybe go together in a way that these things are connected?
I think twofold. So I think a digital product line will be part of Mercedes-Benz's product offering as cars are currently, or model cars are as well. But I also think that NFTs and blockchain as like an infrastructure layer will be key in a lot of things. Coming from traceability, so I mean there's super exciting use cases around especially vintage cars and the parts that are being into it, and certificates and valuation of those that you could solve with NFTs, with blockchain. There's the Mercedes Me ID, so basically your digital ID currently, that is something that can be linked to NFTs, to blockchain technology in a very cool way. So I think NFTs or blockchain as infrastructure layer will be in a ton of things, and then a digital product line will extend the current physical products.
Nice. For tennis, I mean, I kind of touched on it before, but I think when we look at our business, we're a very fragmented and quite decentralized business. You know, we have 60 plus events in all corners of the world, different sponsors, different players, different brands, apparel, you name it. And what's actually interesting about our business is we have very little data, I would say, on our fans. So, you know, even the fans that come through the gates at an arena, we basically know what time they arrive and what time they leave, and everything else in between is dark. You know, we don't know if they bought a beer, sat in center court, sat on the hill in Wimbledon. So, for me, what keeps me excited and what gets me going every day is this vision of creating a shared tech infrastructure that can be used across our very fragmented sport. And not just our tour, you know, we have us, we have the WTA Tour, we have the 4 Slams, where fans can really be seen for everything they do. And again, fans all experience the sport in different ways. They like different players, they like different brands, they watch at different times. So for me, that vision is really exciting, where we can see fan behavior, we can recognize them for it, we can reward them for it, and ultimately, at the end of the day, make their experience better. So that's the vision.
I think, Henrik, what makes panels also exciting is if people disagree, right? So I challenge your point where you mentioned, for example, Mercedes. Well, you're still a car company. Not talking specifically about Mercedes now, but maybe let's go 10 years out, and I would challenge that for a couple of brands. So let's just take Nike. I don't know the exact number, but I think they sold around 160 million of digital assets, right? So the question is, do you need to stick with the same business model that you have right now? Can you turn into a lifestyle brand? You don't need to stay the same company. And what's interesting here is, think about, I mean, in the end, business is about bottom line, right? And margins on digital products are amazing, right? So if you can scale your company by leveraging your brand and building other business units out of that, I mean, how amazing is it? So we don't know where it takes us.
Interesting. Maybe one more point also, because we had like some use cases now. Loyalty played a big role. One in the Lufthansa program, second in Starbucks. Like, where do you see, why is it such a great use case for these loyalty programs? And how do you see this also converting into digital products? For example, I again say, like, Starbucks makes coffee. Like, where are they heading? Like, what is that?
So that's tricky now, because you asked me a question that we spoke 20 minutes on yesterday, and we only have 1 minute left. I see that, but I think I can break it down. So usually, when I speak to stakeholders, it's the technology offers you the opportunity to do a couple of things: bring customer acquisition costs down, have direct connection to your community and fan base again, and make collaborations fairly easy through the interoperability of technology. So I think these 3 things, you don't even need to talk Web3, blockchain, whatever. If you have these 3 points and bring them to senior stakeholders, they're interested. And that's what makes loyalty and Web3 super interesting.
It's exactly my pitch. You must have copied me.
Awesome last words, I would say, Red. 3 takeaways. Thank you very much, guys, for being on stage talking about that. And hopefully see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.